My name is Shipra. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm an alumni of MCET from the batch of 2015. I am the president of an organization that is called the theplanejar. The three main things that we focus on is abuse, mental health, and working with the LGBTQIA plus communities. Today, I wanted to talk about how important it is to address topics of abuse, to address topics of mental health. How do you identify if someone might have been abused or if you yourself might have been in a toxic or abusive relationship? And also, how do you talk to a survivor about something like that? If someone's disclosed something like that to you, what are the do's and don'ts? What do you say? What do you not say? I wanted to start off with talking about a few of the statistics that we might see in India of abuse or mental health. Um, as of, I think, 2018, 56 million Indians suffer from depression and 38 million Indians suffer from anxiety. These are only two of the disorders that also might be covered. Apart from that, if you look at the abuse statistics for only children under the ages of 18, as of 2018, the National Crimes Record Bureau says that 109 children get abused every day. And these numbers are just as of 2018, and these are only of the cases that have been reported. And I know that these numbers might be really shocking. To talk about what abuse can be anything that is causing harm to one person, whether it's physical, emotional, sexual, economical, anything that's causing you harm, making you feel unsafe and vulnerable can be considered as abuse. There's no right or wrong to abuse. Sometimes it's very gray. Sometimes you can't recognize whether you've been abused or not. Sometimes we even wonder why a person might do something like that. And that's when we also talk about the victim and bully cycle, which means that a lot of the times, a lot of the perpetrators have also been through a traumatic past or a traumatic incident on their own. So let's take an example of a person who might be considered a bully in school. It might also be because of them having an abusive relationship at home or them having been abused by, let's say, a relative. Because another statistic would be that majority of the abuse cases happen in our home because the perpetrators have access to the victims or survivors. So if you talk about a bully who has been abused at home, they have been stripped of their power. And the one way they think that they can regain that power is by, let's say, bullying someone in school because they think that's where they can get their power, which they lost at home. That also explains a lot of why people from troubled homes or why people who might have been abused or have traumatic pasts might go ahead and do the same to others. Sometimes abuse can go unrecognizable. We might think that we're in a relationship, we might think that this person really cares for us, but we fail to see or we ignore the manipulative aspects, or we don't want to accept that we also might be going through something, or whether it's causing distress to our mental health or not. So um, let's talk about some indicators. How do you know that you are being abused? As I said, abuse can be really gray. To put another term to that, could be grooming. Grooming is any kind of relationship where one person makes you believe that you're in a healthy, happy, loving relationship, but in turn, they might actually be manipulating you. They might actually be controlling who you see, who you talk to, how you behave. Now, you might think that it might be because the person really cares for you, but it can also be seen as grooming. Grooming is again a very gray area when we talk about abuse. How do you identify that? The person who might be getting groomed might be really secretive about their relationship. They might not want to share certain information about their relationship because they might be really uncomfortable talking about certain things. They might defend their partner in certain things by saying, no, no, but it's okay because this person likes me, or they love me, they care for me, and that's why they might do certain things. They might be getting manipulated. They might be getting isolated from their friend circles. You might see them getting socially withdrawn from the things that they really like to do. And it's also probably happening right after they might be getting into getting into a new relationship. You might see self-hate because they don't know if it's okay for them to isolate themselves. They hate themselves for not being able to get out of it because they think that this person is the only person that makes them feel validated. Yeah, so these can be some of the emotional indicators that you can look at. Some of the physical indicators that we can also look at would be marks on a person's body. Marks on a person's body like bruises, you can have cuts, you can have wounds or fractures. This is also more extreme. Sometimes you can also have unexplained vaginal or anal bleeding. This can also be seen with kids, not just adults as well. You might see torn underwear or torn clothing. You might see memory issues that might occur in a person where they don't remember certain parts of what must have happened to them and they have a very blur memory. Some people term this, or like in psychology, you term this as dissociation, where the person feels like they have had an out of body experience, and for themselves or for their bodies to protect themselves, they kind of box these feelings away and they shut them out, which is why we might not remember certain things that might have happened to us if they cause us a lot of pain. Sometimes it can come in the form of nightmares, it can come in the form of loss of sleep, and sometimes it can also be soreness around the genital area. I know that some of these topics are really hard to talk about, but let's see how we can talk to a survivor. If someone's coming to you and they're asking you or telling you about their stories, what are the do's and don'ts that you should keep in mind when you're talking to them? So I think the first and the most important thing we need to keep in mind is to keep a very mellow tone. Try to match up the pace of the person that's telling you the story. If they're talking in a really overwhelmed manner and you go ahead and rile them up by asking them, okay, what happened next? Okay, but then what did you do? Okay, but then what did that person do? That's getting them riled up more, and you want them to feel as comfortable as you can because you want to be that comfortable place where they can come and share that kind of stuff with you, right? Use language that they are using, so use the words that they are using for certain things, because sometimes we may end up paraphrasing a sentence and it might end up being more triggering for them because it's really direct. So you don't always have to label something as abuse, even though it might be for you, because it might be really overwhelming for them to accept such information. Don't ever ask them why questions would be another important thing to keep in mind. Why didn't you tell me this before? Why didn't you tell anybody about it? Why are you coming out with this now if this happened to you so many years ago? These are questions that I think are not for us to ask. And the fact that the person is coming and telling you this now is a huge deal on its own. So instead of guilting them into telling them that I was always here for you, why didn't you come and tell me this before? It's more important to show concern. It's more important to show that even though they're telling you maybe at a later stage, you're still there for them and that you will help them in any other way that you can. Showing a non-judgmental attitude, or even listening or even talking to them in a non-judgmental manner, is a huge thing, because they're going to know if you're going to be judging them, and there might be certain actions that they might be doing which you disapprove of out of care or concern, but for them that just comes out in a place where they can't trust you, where they think that you will judge them and they can't share more information with you. This also goes hand in hand with confidentiality, where it's really important for us to keep the information that someone telling us confidential, because otherwise, again, you're risking the trust factor with the person. Being empathetic towards what they have to say. Not making this about you. So if someone comes and tells me something about their story or about their mental health, I don't want to say, okay, do you know this happened to me too, or this is when that happened to me. I don't have to make this about me. I want this to be about them. I want this to be an open space about for them where they can talk about whatever they want to talk about. Accepting that information will create a very comfortable space for them to go ahead and talk more about what might have happened to them. And it might also open up a new conversation about how you can help them get more help. We need to recognize that action is not always required, which means that if someone goes ahead and tells you that they had been physically abused in a domestic relationship or in their house, it's not always about, okay, we have to file this case, we have to get you out of this house, we have to file an FIR against the person. It has to again go with the pace of the survivor. What do they want to do? Do they just want to talk about it? Do they want to accept that, okay, I want to go ahead and file a case? It really depends on what they want to do, even though you might want to take action out of care for them and out of protecting themselves or not. If the person is a child, you don't want to ask them directly, and the child might even lack vocabulary on how to tell you that, okay, this was abuse, because they themselves might not have the correct words to say that. A lot of the times doing drawing activities with the person helps a lot, where you ask them to draw their family environment or draw their relationship with a certain person that you might suspect. Sometimes, a lot of the times, you can actually come to know what might have happened with the child. Sometimes you try to point out on a doll where you ask the child to explain to you, where did the person touch you? And they kind of point it out on the doll because that makes it more comfortable for them to open up about certain things. Another thing which would be a big don't tell a person, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to. If they have started sharing and if they are telling you very slowly, if they're taking a lot of breaks, understand that that's because it's really hard for them to talk about. They want to talk about it, but it's just hard for them to open up. So it's for you to feel comfortable in that silence and let them come back with it. Let them share it with you slowly when they feel comfortable. No problem is big or small. Don't try to compare their stories with other stories by saying that, okay, but this person had it harder, or my problems are nothing compared to yours. Because again, as I said, abuse can be very different for a lot of different people, or mental health concerns can look different in everybody, and we can't judge whether it's small or it's big. It's only about listening to them. Do not give advice. Another thing that's really important is for us to just be there to listen. A lot of the times you might feel like you want to tell them this is what they should do, but you should understand that you should be giving them the autonomy of making a decision whether they want to take this up with a professional, whether they want to talk to a therapist about it, they want to talk to a social worker about it, they just want to leave the information with you and not talk about it again. That's something that you need to give them the power over, because as we spoke about earlier, the autonomy is the main thing that matters to them. That's because that is something that they felt like they lost control over, and giving them that control back can give them a sense of independence and a sense of autonomy, which should be our goal as a listener or as a helper. Lastly, I just wanted to talk about how you can probably help a person who might be going in emotional reactions, such as panic attacks or anger outbursts, or maybe they just cry when they're telling you what has happened to them. How do you deal with situations like those? So a panic attack would be anything which is an abrupt onset of fear in a person. Now, a panic attack can be different for a lot of people. People might experience them in many different ways. You might have a racing heartbeat, you might be trembling, you might have shortness of breath, you feel like you don't know what's happening to you, everything around you is blur, you're getting chills or hot flashes, you're feeling like everything is going out of control and you're about to die. For a lot of people, they experience panic attacks in a very different manner, but it's also important to understand that panic attacks are experienced in peaks or in waves. So after a certain point, that peak does have to come back down, and it's all about how you're helping the person ground themselves and keeping themselves in the moment till that peak has passed. Some of the ways to do that would be to heavy breathe or to deep breathe with them by taking a deep breath in and releasing that. Sometimes while maintaining eye contact and breathing with the person helps them because they feel like they're not alone. It makes them feel like they're safe in a safe environment where no threat is coming to them. That's what helps them calm down. Sometimes blowing bubbles or blowing into a paper bag can help because again you're breathing through. Another thing with anxiety can be using your five senses. So one thing that I have done with my cases would also be using your five senses. So if someone comes to you and tells you that they have been experiencing anxiety or panic attack, or they're experiencing it at the moment, try and ask them what are some things that they see around them. What are their surroundings? What are they hearing right now? Is there some warm drink or something sweet that they can have right now? Because these two things end up helping us help us calm down. Another thing would be touch. What can you touch? Can you touch the ground? Can you put your palms? Can you press your palms on the ground? Can you touch your blanket, maybe if it's soft? So the goal over here is to engage all our senses so that we're distracting our mind from the anxiety or the panic that we might be feeling. These are just some of the ways that we can probably help a person. If the person is having an anger outburst, you need to understand that the anger is not directed towards you. It's probably because they have been triggered by something else, and it's important for you to validate their feelings towards the abuse. And it's important for you to tell them that even though they might be angry towards you, or they might be removing that frustration towards you, you're still going to be there and you can still listen to them. If the person is shutting you out, respect that. Don't try and push them to tell you the entire story. Then give them their space. Tell them that it's okay for them to shut you out for some time, but you need to make sure to validate them that when they are ready to talk about something like that, you're going to be there to talk to them about it too. Another thing would be to regularly check up on them. If they're uncomfortable talking about it now, let the topic go. Do something that will probably make them feel better. But always remember to check up on them and follow up on how they felt and what their feelings were on the day that they probably shared something with you, and if they want to continue doing that or if they just want to keep it that way. Again, assuring their safety, assuring that everything they're telling you is confidential, assuring that you just want to be there for them as a listener. So I guess these were some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about. Just to end it with a little bit about what I do or what my organization does. So as I said earlier, the three main things that we focus on is abuse, mental health, and working with the LGBTQIA community. We help connect people to therapists. Sometimes if the person is unable to pay for their therapy, we also try to fund a person's therapy or medicines or psychometric tests that might happen. We also have trained buddies and social workers on our team, which allows us to take on cases of abuse, domestic violence, sexual abuse, suicide, self-harm, anxiety, etc. So we have trained people. If you just want someone to talk to, we're going to be here. Apart from that, we also have a support group that runs twice a month, which is facilitated by a counselor. So yeah, I hope you reach out to us, and all the details will be mentioned in the link below or in the description box below.